Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the August meeting of the Borough Council's Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Fox and I'm the Vice Chairman of the committee, and the Chairman has sent her apologies for today's meeting and therefore I will be chairing in her absence. Members and officers have their names in front of them for ease of reference. I will take a few minutes to explain the process that we work to in these committees. Each application will be presented by the appropriate case officer. After each presentation, those members of the public who have written to the council requesting to speak will be invited to take a seat at the opposite end of the table. The time allocation is 3 minutes for each speaker. This will be strictly timed and enforced. Speeches must relate to material planning issues and must not be derogatory. No questioning is allowed, and no further written information, photographs, plans or other material can be submitted at this stage. Those applications on the agenda with public speakers will be dealt with first, so the running order for tonight will be items as set out. I hope this is clear. If there's any questions, please speak to the officers or myself after this meeting. If the meeting extends beyond 9 PM, I'll ask for a proposal from the members to extend the meeting to a specific time. Once the item under discussion at that time is resolved, the meeting will then be adjourned and will reconvene on another evening. In order to assist with this process, I must ensure that mobile phones are either switched off or on silent mode. I'll do that myself. We would be grateful if you remain quiet whilst the meeting is in progress. I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being filmed by the council and broadcast live on the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. If you are seated in the chamber, it is possible that the cameras will capture your image. By your presence, you are deemed to consent to being filmed and to the use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and or training purposes. As the chairman of this meeting, I can at my discretion terminate or suspend filming if, in my opinion, continuing to do so would prejudice the proceedings of the meeting, or if I consider that continued filming might infringe the rights of any individual or breach any statutory provision. There's no fire drills planned for this evening, so should the alarm sound, please either exit the way you came in or through that door there, or just follow the committee. I'm sure we'll quite quickly out. Okay, so as I'm the Vice Chairman of the committee, acting as Chairman this evening, I would like to propose Councillor Claire Bath be Vice Chairman for this evening's meeting. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded. Thank you. Those in agreement? Thank you. Any against? No? Good. Okay, let's start with the rest of the meeting then, please. Apologies for absence.
Yes, Chairman, I have apologies from Councillor Smith and Councillor Abbott.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Nottage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, following an overheard statement that was made at a Residents Association meeting, I've been told that I would be regarded as having a perceived bias if I stayed at this meeting. So therefore I shall leave the meeting. Thank you.
Can you confirm which item that was for? Which item was that in regard to, please?
Item 1.
Item 1, thank you.
Chairman, and because I'm under a time consideration, it could be that I may not be here for item 2 or 3.
Okay, thank you. Okay, minutes. Sorry. Councillor Neil.
Yeah, the item Priory Church, I'm Heritage Champion. I have sat in on 1 or 2 meetings with the church. Haven't given any indication on we have seen the plans, but I haven't given any indication whether it's right, wrong or indifferent, and I feel quite confident that I'm happy to stay in because there's no investigation been done, or I've given no view. Okay.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay, minutes. Confirm as correct the record of the minutes of the meeting of the previous planning committee.
Happy to confirm as correct.
Thank you. Second? Councillor Neil. All in favour? Yeah, thank you. Which brings us on to the planning items for this month's meeting. Starting with Avon Beach Cafe. Who's leading on this one? Thank you.
Good evening, members, ladies and gentlemen. This application before you this evening is to vary condition 4 of a previous planning permission for a development at Avon Beach Cafe at Mudderford to allow for natural ventilation to the first floor. The site of the application is, as many of you know, on the beach at Friars Cliff. You have the car park off Avon Run Road to the rear, the car park here. There's a bank between the level of the cafe facilities that are there at the moment, a bank, and then properties in the area. And this just shows an aerial photograph of the land within the applicant's control that's subject to the application. Members will recall, or those members of the committee that were here at the time will recall an application that was submitted to you earlier this year to extend the premises at the Avon Beach Cafe to provide new facilities and new cafe facilities at the first floor. That was following a previous refusal and dismissal at appeal. The application before you this evening is in respect of a condition imposed on that planning permission. So the planning permission in respect of the extension and all the matters that were considered at the previous planning committee in respect of that extension are not before you this evening. What you are considering this evening is whether the condition can be varied in respect of opening windows. So if I read you, set out on para 2.1 is the condition in question that was imposed by planning committee, which I don't think I need to read out. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. The wording of that condition was an expansion on that suggested as necessary by your environmental health officers at the time of the consideration of the earlier application to protect the amenities of local residents. It was submitted or expanded at the request of the planning committee members because at that time there was no certainty as to how the first floor premises will be used in respect of noise in terms of music, amplified music, live music. So members rightly were concerned that without a condition to limit how that first floor was used, there could be an impact on local residents. You will see from your report that the current application proposes to vary the above condition to allow natural ventilation of the premises by the opening of the first floor windows, other than 2 first floor washroom windows on the west elevation, which is to the rear, which are proposed to be fixed shut. The applicant also proposes the addition of a condition stating that no live or amplified music is to be played at the first floor at any time. If I go through the presentation, you will see on this plan, this is the extent of the extension that you have granted. This in red is the area of the existing premises, but that's currently used as a flat. It is not used as part of the restaurant. You have 2 windows at the rear which are to serve the washrooms, which the applicant has accepted shall be fixed shut. There is a window to the rear here which serves a staff room. There's a door here which serves the existing staff room. There is a fire door here which should be kept shut. There are 2 existing windows that are now incorporated in the scheme, and a new window here. This is the beach side, and a new window overlooking the car park, although there is an existing window in situ here. So those show the existing and proposed elevations. So you notice that there are some window changes. This is possibly the critical one. This is the rear elevation. So that window exists but has been amended. 2 new windows here, which are washroom windows, and a fire escape door, which still exists. So we will go to the end of the presentation. When the application was submitted in respect of the variation of the condition, it was accompanied by an acoustic report, because one of the issues that members were concerned about was the impact of perceived or potential noise from the extension, which is roughly in this location, on the surrounding area, and the amenities of the surrounding area, mainly the local residents. So the application was accompanied by a noise survey, and on your update sheet there is a copy of the full table that goes with this plan for your assistance. We've just taken an extract from it at the moment. So you can see where all the noise recordings were made relative to the proposed extension, which is here. So we have them in a variety of locations adjacent to existing residential properties in the area, on the beach, on the car park, at the top of the bank, adjacent to the existing car park, and in the existing car park here. That was submitted at the request of the planning department to enable the applicants to demonstrate whether there was or wasn't an impact if the windows were not kept shut as per the original condition. That, in essence, that noise report concludes that there will be no significant harm to local residents as a result of by noise and disturbance as a result of the use of the extension. Local residents were concerned about this application, as you probably well know, and carried out their or undertook their own noise survey with, again, acoustic consultants. That survey, after negotiation with your environmental health department, basically comes to the same conclusion as the applicant's noise survey, that because of the way that the site will be used and the conditions that we are proposing to you this evening in terms of controlling how the windows will be able to be opened, and that there will be no music played at first floor, and that if there is any music played at ground floor, the first floor windows will be fixed shut, that there should be no detrimental impact on the amenities of the surrounding area and local residents, and on that basis the application is recommended to you for approval.
Thank you very much. Okay, I now call upon Mr. Seeger to address the committee. If you'd like to come up, take a seat, turn your microphone on and introduce yourself, and then we'll start timing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Colin Seeger. With my wife, I live in Capesthorne. Those of you who are familiar with the site will know that it is adjacent to the Noisy Lobster car park. As I said at the February committee meeting, that makes us well qualified to be described as local residents. Removal of condition 4 would contradict and make nonsense of the approval of the proposed development. It is our opinion that without that condition, the application would not have been approved. The restaurant noise survey, to which you've just referred, submitted by the applicant, is unrealistic and meaningless. Conducted as it was one evening when some diners were in the cafe. Naturally, it could not be based upon a facility that did not exist. But here is the rub. I congratulate the applicants on the way in which they have sought to underplay what they are actually seeking. The term function room no longer appears on any plans or written submissions, but that, I believe, is their real objective. I'm sure that we have all enjoyed or endured attending functions and cocktail parties at which, even at some wakes, the noise level rises in direct proportion to the rate of alcohol consumption. It is therefore totally reasonable to seek to ensure that noise levels are curtailed. I understand that concern has been expressed that air conditioning required as a result of windows being fixed would itself be very noisy. I don't think that argument holds water. Modern installations are not accompanied by unreasonable noise levels, as being in many local shops or restaurants during the recent spell of hot weather demonstrated. Or maybe it is simply the additional cost the applicant seeks to avoid. Had the noise survey been carried out on the evening of Saturday the 12th of May, when there was a wedding reception and a marquee on the beach that continued until 11:30 p.m, the decibel count would have been dramatically higher than the modest numbers presented by the applicant. I urge the committee to hold firm and reject the proposed removal of a reasonable condition that simply sought to take account of the legitimate concerns of residents worried about further erosion of their environment. It will result in material harm to the amenities of neighbouring properties. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Miss Abley,
Thank you.
give you a moment to introduce yourself and no, it needs a red light, that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marianne Abley, thank you.
Thank you.
Planning permission was granted with just 4 votes to 3, with members stating that this was very much subject to condition 4 and fundamental to the narrowest of approvals. Several members round this table were at that meeting. Residents across the borough will find it unbelievable if such a major condition is removed. We urge members all round the table to consider why the planning committee stipulated this condition as part of the approval. This was based on the expected noise levels from a much larger client base, including functions at a first floor level, with noise being funnelled up the stairs without that sound protection of the cliffs. Environmental Health Officer's previous comments are still relevant in this conservation area. As to condition 4, nothing has changed. The very high number of objectors again identify that open windows will materially impact due to the increased noise and smells on the amenity, not just for residents, but all the many visitors who so enjoy the beach and the coastal pathway, which is directly next to the extension. The first floor extension adds significant more covers and a function room facility. There are ongoing issues re the Noisy Lobster in terms of foul waste, cooking smells, closure of gate, all having a detrimental effect which can surely only get worse with such increases in numbers. If condition 4 is removed, it will surely result in enforcement, which is reactive. Condition 4 is proactive and would stop it. Taking into account this summer's high temperatures, which we forecast to be the norm, it is difficult to see how any ventilation system relying on windows being partially open to the atmosphere can be controlled. Effective air conditioning is installed in all other similar establishments due to the heat and noise we have visited. The applicant's statement was based on one visit on an evening when there was little wind and no surf noise, and a time when there was under 30 people dining at ground floor level, 30, with no windows open. Not normal conditions in terms of what could be the usual when this extension is built. Our local action group commissioned consultants in noise and vibration from the University of Southampton. They are completely contrary to what the applicant is saying. They are the top of the field. They are saying that there will be major noise impact to residents and to visitors. There is a direct line of sight between the first floor gazing and the ground floor. and is not screened in any way. In conclusion, the need for condition 4 remains the same as agreed by your members and advised by our independent noise. We urge you to reject the application.
Thank you, Mrs. Abley. Mr. Hayworth, please. The microphone's already on, so if you just want to take a moment to introduce yourself, and then we'll start the timer.
Good evening, members of the Planning Committee. My name is Peter Hayworth, and I'm a director of Avon Beach Limited, who have the benefit of a long lease at Avon Beach from Christchurch Borough Council. We were granted planning permission a few months ago to provide a much-needed first floor restaurant extension. Condition 4 of that consent was based on the objectors believing we wish to provide disco and live group music. Far from it. Some of the original objectors are now trying to prove that the window should remain closed at all times due to the noise generated by diners on the first floor. Our existing restaurant has all windows open during the warmer months and people sat on the outdoor terrace. We've upgraded the windows and doors on the ground floor, providing much needed double glazing throughout. To our knowledge, environmental health has no concerns with the noise generated by diners for the past 5 years. Fresh, muddy-foot air is good for both staff, diners and the atmosphere in the restaurant. The planning officer is recommending granting our application, stating that there are no material considerations which would warrant refusal. This opinion appears to be very much based on the report by the environmental health officer. To reach this opinion, the environmental health officer has studied 2 specialist noise reports from consultants hired by ourselves and the objectors. The reports commissioned by the objectors in its original state was found to not be representative in parts. The 3-metre wide opening looking down the car park to the west was shown to be an unobstructed area. This is inaccurate. Fenestration, the details of which we agreed to be approved by environmental health, would substantially reduce the unobstructed area. As a result, the objector's noise consultant recalculated his findings, and the report predicts a noise level acceptable to environmental health. There was also a point raised in the objector's report that a 2-metre square opening may be a concern. This is in fact a fire door and so will be kept closed. To summarise, both the objector's sound reports as well as our own have produced predicted noise levels from the first floor extension that are below the background noise and so deemed acceptable to environmental health. The environmental health officer has raised 3 conditions that, if incorporated, would result in no material harm to the amenities of the occupants of the nearby residential properties. We are happy with all 3 of these conditions. As recommended by the planning and environmental officers, I ask that you grant our application to set out with the new conditions. I'd also like to add that our report that we had conducted was done on a Friday evening at 9 o'clock, one of our busiest nights of the year, on a very warm, hot summer's day. It could not be more indicative of the performance of our restaurant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hayworth. We have a statement from Councillor Hilliard. Would it be okay with the rest of the committee for Councillor Hilliard to join the table to read a statement? Thank you.
Chairman and members, thank you for allowing me to speak against this latest application at the Avon Beach Cafe. As we are all aware, the above condition 4 was specifically referenced and expanded upon at the February 2018 Planning Committee when the chairman was summing up and prior to the approval of the application. The requirement for fixed shut windows was fundamental in the marginal 4-3 approval of the application. Why else would it have been individually referenced as a condition? I understand that the applicant is now seeking to remove condition 4 due to the expense that would be required for additional air conditioning and extractor fans. This is unbelievable in view of the profitability that the establishment must be earning. As we're seeing a major condition being asked to be removed, what is there to prevent the proposed conditions that no live or amplified music to be played on the first floor at any time will be removed in the future, as has been history in other applications? The report before the committee states that the impact of noise within a conservation area can be a material consideration. Allowing the windows on the first floor to be open when serving customers throughout the day and night will materially impact the amenities of residents and users of the beach due to increased noise levels and smells. The 6060 letters of objection all identify this fact. As section 2.1 in the report states, condition 4 of the decision notice stated the following: the doors and windows at first floor level to the north and south side and west rear elevations at roof level shall be fixed shut. These windows shall be glazed with acoustic level glass. Furthermore, 2.2 goes on to say, in February, the wording of the above condition was an expansion of that suggested as necessary by our environmental health officers to protect the amenities of local residents at the request of committee members, due to their concerns that premises could create noise disturbance which would be harmful to living conditions of local residents. Nothing has changed since February, so the environmental health officers must still be relevant. Their comments. This current planning submission was supported by an acoustic report, assessed against the existing ground floor. The report noted that the ground floor of the cafe benefits from screening from the bank behind, which separates the neighbours. The proposed first floor would not benefit from such protection, so there would be potential for noise impact from openable windows. That's what the report states. It is obvious to all and acknowledged in the report before us that the first floor extension will create additional noise and smells that will impact the amenity and enjoyment of the area. Having the windows fixed shut will help reduce the extension's impact, as this committee previously agreed 6 months ago. Nothing has changed in 6 months, therefore we ask that you uphold condition 4 that you previously stipulated and reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hilliard. I believe the officers would like to supply some extra information.
Thank you, Chairman. It has been mentioned this evening about the original environmental health comment on the original planning application and the wording of the condition that was recommended to committee at that stage. If I can read out to you the response on the planning application of your environmental health colleagues in respect of the application 8173034. It states, my main concerns regarding this development is the potential for music noise to disturb the neighbours in Avon Run Road. Since the previous application, we have had one night where there were complaints of music noise from nearby residents. I recommend the following conditions. Doors and windows to the premises should be kept closed during live and amplified music. The proposed new first floor windows must be double glazed. This condition might result in air conditioning units being required in the proposed upstairs area, which will require external condensers fan units. So the concern of your environmental health colleagues in respect of that original application was potential for music noise. We now have an application before us which says there will be no music at first floor. That's now been clarified. That is the significant difference between this application and the previous application. That is clarified and covered by condition. And on that basis, there is a change, and we also now have the 2 acoustic reports which confirm that there is no significant impact on residential properties. The recommended condition stays the same from your environmental health officers from the original application, with the addition of some details in respect of exactly how those window openings should be dealt with, which you will see set out in condition 8 on your recommendation to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move to questions, Councillor Geary, did you have anything you wish to add?
Yes, Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity. Originally, I should have mentioned and interests the fact that I know the father of the applicant, Senior Peter Hayworth Senior. I am not involved with the development, but if you wish me to leave the chamber, I will. But if I remain, I shall not vote or take part in the debate.
I'll defer to legal opinion.
Chair, thank you. You probably saw me have a quick chat with Councillor Geary at his shoulder. The simple reason being I was passed a note to say that he declared an interest in the February meeting, and indeed you left the room, Councillor. I merely advised you as to your position. It's a matter for you as to whether or not you accept that advice. I can't tell you that you should or can. It's a matter for you as to whether or not you wish now, given that you declared an interest in February, to leave the room. So it's purely a matter for you. I can't tell you what to do, but that's the advice.
On that basis, I take the legal advice.
Much obliged, Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, questions? Councillor Hall.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. What I would like to know is that a simple solution to me would to have air conditioning installed. You'd have fresh sea air coming in through air conditioning, and that would save removing this condition. Because normally, if you put a condition on, it's for a purpose. And to me, that would solve the problem. And it'd also keep our residents very pleased that we have taken action like that. So I can't see any reason to remove condition 4. So I will not support that. Also, what I'd like to know is that we've got enforcement officers and they do a very good job, but it is very difficult sometimes at night when there are disturbances for them. So my question is, have we got the enforcement officers available to take enforcement action if it's necessary?
Can I defer to my colleague, Mr. Whitney, who can answer the question in respect of noise? I can deal with the issues in respect of enforcement of planning conditions, following Sean's comments in respect of enforcement of noise issues. That's okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we do operate an out-of-hours service 24/7. So if there should be any breach of the conditions that were proposed or noise disturbance from the premises, then an officer would be available to attend at whatever time that complaint might be made, and they would be able to visit the premises. Equally, we do conduct sort of proactive visits, so we could actually find out when there are events proposed, or if there's a particular day of the week or night when it's likely that something will be taking place, then we will attend and monitor the situation to see whether or not there is unreasonable noise taking place, and then we would obviously act accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I would like to ask is that obviously Mr. Whitney said he would come out if necessary, but I think residents would like to know if they have a problem, they can phone someone that night and it came. So would it be possible to have a telephone number or a contact details for residents when they have an issue?
Yes, Councillor, through you, Chair, that number already exists. If residents call the council number, they will automatically be connected through to a call centre, which will then pass on the details to the environmental health officer, who will contact the residents back and will then make a visit if it's deemed necessary.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Hall, could I also assist in respect of breaches of planning condition? If a planning condition is breached and there is evidence of a breach of planning condition and we serve a breach of condition notice, there is no appeal against such a notice, and if the terms of the condition are not complied with, the applicant is straight into the magistrate's court for as many times as it takes to get them to comply with the terms of the condition. So there are enforcement powers in respect of breaches of condition which are quicker to act than your normal enforcement regime of serving a notice and going through a long-winded process. So I hope that assists as well.
Thank you very much for that.
Councillor Spittle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got several, I'm afraid, questions to ask. First of all, it has been made, or it's been mentioned about the smells that would possibly emanate from the use of the first floor. Could the officers, as far as they are aware, confirm that the kitchens, where normally all the food preparation, etc., is conducted, are not being moved onto the first floor, so that concern is irrelevant?
As you can see from this the slide in front of you, yes, there is an intention to put a kitchen on the first floor, but you've already granted planning permission for that, with no requirements for any control in terms of how, other than condition 9, which it was on your original consent, which talks about if there is a need for a ventilation system and if there's a need for a kitchen extraction system, then that requires prior approval of this council. So that element has already been considered and dealt with, and the issue of smell has not been raised until today in respect of an extant planning permission.
Thank you for clarifying that. Another question actually for the environmental officer. Do you agree that the figure 85 dBA is a very loud noise, actually, because that is what has been used in the tests and has shown and been agreed by both consultants that it won't emanate a lot of noise to the residents?
Yes, Councillor. 85 is quite a high noise level. If you think that sort of nightclubs, discos, that type of thing, generally tend to operate in the region of sort of the high 90s. 85 is a reasonable representation of what would be quite a noisy restaurant. It would be wrong to say that restaurants don't achieve those sorts of noise levels. Certainly some of the more modern ones, with the hard surfaces, etc., with several covers in there, do on occasion reach such levels. So I think it's certainly at the upper end of what we would be expecting in a premises like this, and I think on that basis it's not seeking to underplay the likely noise that could be generated.
Thank you. Also, could the officers just confirm that the first floor is intended just to be for diners, not a function room, as I was slightly confused about that? And the mention of a recent wedding, was that not just a private function that was actually involved with the with the actual restaurant?
The application was for an addition of covers into the first floor. Whether it's used as a private function room wouldn't be a change of use. And the wedding that you referred to, I think, was the applicant's wedding that was on the beach. So it wasn't actually in the premises. It was in a different location than this. Whether it used some of the facilities of the restaurant, I don't know, because I wasn't there. But I know that most of it was a marquee on the beach. So how that is used is been considered. It is set out in the application before you as a restaurant. It is accessed through the existing building, through the existing first floor. It is considered to be a restaurant use.
Finally, if I may, Mr. Chairman, people have referred to having a possible air conditioning plant. For the size of this property, would it not be needed to have a substantial air conditioning plant, which would then generate certain vibration or noise that could emanate over the car park to the residents?
Chairman, through you again. Yes, air conditioning is obviously an additional noise source that would have to then be controlled. They are quite efficient nowadays, and again, subject to the specifics of the design to provide the air conditioning to that first floor room, would dictate, how big the unit needs to be, whether there's more than one, etc., where they're located, that type of thing. But certainly, when it is operating, it will generate noise, and obviously that's why the additional condition has been proposed about having details of that, so we can ensure that more ongoing noise would not impact on residents locally.
Thank you very much for many questions. Councillor Bath.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got a couple of questions. Where the noise was recorded, one of the speakers said it was recorded down next to the building and therefore didn't represent what it would be like up on the cliff path. These dots that are here, the dot number 2, has it been taken into account that the noise will actually be at the raised level, sort of above the cliffside, rather than at the lower level from that point?
Yes, the point 2 is where readings have been taken to establish both the noise from the existing use of the premises, which is currently the ground floor and therefore is screened by the bank. It's also been used to find out the background noise level. When the predicted noise from the first floor has been modelled and calculated, there has been no correction applied for the bank acting as a barrier. So in effect it is still representative. It's not been assumed that the bank is providing a degree of attenuation. It has been taken out of any calculations to recognise that the first floor obviously will give you line of sight over the bank, and therefore there won't be any attenuation of the noise.
I've got one more question to seek some clarity, because one of the residents said that the noise consultant that they employed came to the conclusion that there would be a major noise impact to residents, whereas the noise takings that we have done seems to criticise that and have the opposite. But I believe there was some change to the opinion, but I just wonder if you could clarify what actually has gone on and how they reached a different opinion.
Yes, Councillor. In the original report that the Residents' Association commissioned, there was an assumption made that the openable area of windows would be in fact greater than that which was likely to occur. If you look at the table that was in the report, currently the window and door area available to, or the openable area when viewed from the southwest, so from Avon Run Road, has been agreed at 0.45 square metres. Originally, the report, just scroll back. Originally, the report that the residents had assumed that openable area would be 3 square metres. Now, obviously, the attenuation provided by reducing that openable area means the amount of noise that's transmitted will equally be reduced, and so that's why there was then a correction. The original noise at the receiver that the ISVR report calculated was at 43, but following the correction for the reduced openable areas, that has gone down to 35. And so hence that then falls into line. The applicant's report, the assumed noise at the receiver was 36, hence why we're saying actually both reports are very much in tune and sort of coming to the same conclusions.
Any further questions? Councillor Spittle again.
Just one thought. But as the noise is the main concern from the residents, would any fitments of, say, soundproofing board or whatever, would that make any improvement? Inside the property, and could we actually include that as a condition?
Unfortunately, the application before you tonight is only in respect of the variation of that condition. Planning permission has already been granted for the extension and the structure of that extension. What we have added in condition 8 on your agenda is that there are details of exactly how those windows are opened and which way the hinges go, because that's quite important to actually funnel any noise towards the sea basically and not towards local residents, and it might be opportune to suggest that we could extend that condition 8 to say that if at any time there is the need to keep the windows at first floor shut because there is music at the ground floor, then those windows are actually locked shut, so there are window locks actually on those, so that someone upstairs can't just then decide they want to open the window, which would then negate the reason for adding that condition on. So that is what I would recommend adding as an addition to condition 8.
Come back. These days it is a trend actually to have very clear surfaces, and that obviously creates a lot more noise than in the past. Could that be not a condition but possibly a recommendation that an applicant may wish to follow, which would then, as I said, lessen the amount or the volume of the noise? It's just something that occurred to me. Thank you.
We don't feel that that's something we could impose as a condition. It goes beyond the tests of reasonableness for a planning condition. It's controlling the internal layout and internal fixtures and fittings of a building, and that's something that we don't have absolute control over.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting it to go as a condition, just possibly a recommendation in view of the present trend. Actually, that was all. So
the applicant's here and is hearing what committee is saying. So yes.
Councillor Lofts.
Thank you, Chairman. I've only just noticed on that projection at the moment where it talks about noise at receiver, where it says dB, which I've lived with for 60 odd years, so I know what dB is. But after that, in brackets, is a capital A. Could I ask what that A is meant to represent? Thank you.
Yes, Councillor, the A is what's known as the A weighting, and it's a correction which is applied to what we'll call the raw noise data to represent how the human ear actually hears the sound. So if you remove the A weighting from that 35 decibels, for example, it would be higher, but because of the way the ear performs, you won't hear that higher noise level. Your ear filters out at different frequencies, and the A weighting sort of suppresses the noise at those different frequencies, and so it represents what you or what an individual would expect to hear from a noise level.
That's at the human level of audibility. Has anybody mentioned dogs howling?
Well, even if it was dogs howling, it's the humans that would hear the dogs howling, so the A weighting would then still be relevant to that particular thing. In terms of whether a dog would hear the noise differently and then be disturbed by the noise from the restaurant, I don't know. I'm not aware of any research where people have actually assessed whether, to what extent dogs would hear differently to humans.
Chairman, I was asking because, as I indicated earlier, my pension is built on knowing what DB means, but the point I was trying to make is you had mentioned the human ear and its band spread. There's a lot of other things that are totally out of that band spread, if band spread's the right word. It's only on seeing that form that I thought I'd ask. Thank you.
Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Chairman. Would it be possible to go back to the slide of the windows again, please? With the ones that are put up, excuse me, because I wasn't actually here on the first one on February the 15th, so I just wanted to clarify a few things. So the windows on the west side, they will both be closed, and the windows on the north you're proposing open. Could there be a compromise? Because if the north probably will come, I'm not that good on geography, but if the north side were open and then there was a compromise on the facing south that was kept shut, would that be a possibility?
No, I don't think that would assist. The windows on the rear elevation, so I'm just trying to make the mouse work properly, that's better. The window that's being highlighted to you at the moment is an existing window that will currently serve a staff room, which, as you see, is not directly linked through to the restaurant. The two windows that serve the cloakrooms will be fixed shut because they will already need artificial ventilation because they're serving cloakrooms. The window here, that window faces over the car park, and what the condition 8 proposes is that the windows are actually angled so that when they're open, they're angled towards the sea effectively, so they're not directing any, if there is any noise issue, that's not being directed towards the neighbours. And the new window on the south elevation, on the front elevation, actually serves the landing and staircase. And the two there that are currently being highlighted are existing windows in the existing flat. So the condition that they all be double glazed, all with conditions in respect of how they open, and with a suggestion this evening that we add a condition that if there is a requirement for them to be fixed shut, that they actually locked shut for the duration. Consider that is enough to overcome any perceived issue of noise.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, let's move into debate, and we'll start with the ward councillor, Councillor Bath.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, certainly we've had a very long and detailed debate and questions about this. Not debate, we're just starting the debate. The residents have put across some very strong views about their feelings, and I know there's been a lot of strong feelings about the development and the amount of development on the site, and I can absolutely understand their concerns about the noise levels, because this will be a new area within the existing facility. I think the residents have made their views very well known, and they've obviously paid out a lot of money to get the research evidence to back up their views from the professionals. However, now that the parameters for the professionals that they sought the advice from has been clarified to be in exactly the way that the openings are going to be, and the size of the openings and the windows that are proposed, and that the environmental officer would have the final say in what the windows are going to look like and how they could be opened. And now that those both the reports now are pretty much the same, coming up with the conclusion that the noise disturbance will not affect the residents to a detrimental effect. And much as I would like to go along with what the residents want us to do to refuse this, I believe that the professional advice that we have been given by the professionals who do all the sound testings is something that we have to adhere to. Otherwise, why have a professional if we're not actually going to acknowledge the advice we are given? And when it actually concurs, two professionals are saying the same thing, then I believe we have to actually take that into account with our decision making. So much as I'd like to go along with what the residents would like us to do, I feel we have to approve this because we have the evidence to back up why it should be approved. So that would be my suggestion. That would be, sorry, my proposal.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, with the addition to condition 8.
Councillor Spittle.
Do I take it that was a proposal? Yeah.
That's
I'm
correct.
Quite happy. Well, I'm not, because I can appreciate the fears expressed by the residents, but in view of the of the restaurant, which has been a very successful venture, I mean, and also an asset to the town. I know people may, it is unfortunate if you have a fear of it creating disturbance, which I, having heard from the officers, read the report, and also I did myself seek further advice from an expert, I am satisfied that the applicant has also done as much as he can possibly do, and that we should, in that case, I'm quite happy to second the proposal as set out by Councillor Bath.
Thank you very much. Any further debates? Councillor Hall.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Well, I certainly can't support this. I think to just vary that condition is wrong. I don't think it's really necessary, and I think the residents will be very upset. I think myself that it is important to put that condition 4 on. We shouldn't be changing it, and I can't support the recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Neal.
I'm following on with Peter. As one who actually voted for the application to go through, that was a very close thing in my view. We put that condition in because we felt strongly that there was a problem. As far as decibels and the A goes, I mean, I would also have consideration about sometimes, well, it's a known fact that younger people can hear more than what older people can. And we don't know what range of, in the banner that is, of the decibels being with the A. And even when you get older, and I'm afraid I'm old, but I don't, people do wear hearing aids, and that accentuates noise sometimes even more. So I don't agree with the original proposal. I don't see how the decibels can be put down at one point when the band is so wide according to age. The fire door we've got no controllable ability with, because the fire door could be left open or wedged open if it has to be unlocked if it was needed, and if they needed more air in there. So I have concerns about condition 9, where the noise from the air conditioning unit, if that is to be proposed to at a later date to go in, I'm concerned about the location and the possible noise of that. So I feel the application should remain with that condition 4 in. Sorry, I can't support it.
Any further debate on this? Okay, in which case we'll go to the vote. We'll be voting. So we have a proposal that this is approved with the conditions, and it's been seconded. Sorry? With the addition to condition 8. Okay, should we take the vote on that then, please? Those in favour? And those against?
And could you have my vote recording, please, Chairman, that I voted against, if I can't approve it?
Okay, thank you. Okay, that item has been approved. Thank you. Right, we'll just wait for a moment. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is a planning meeting, and I'll ask you to remain quiet. Okay. Right. Welcome back, Councillor Geary. If we can move on now to item B, Highcliffe Castle, Rossley Drive and the path, please. Okay, Highcliffe Castle, Rossley Drive. Who's leading? Linda. Jane.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. This is an application at Highcliffe Castle. It considers the zigzag path and the replacement of the existing ramped path that goes down from the castle to the beach. Sure, all members are familiar with the site and the path which zigzags its way down to the beach. The original was constructed in the 1970s and was upgraded in 2005 to comply with the DDA regulations. The mid and lower sections have experienced some decay over the past few years with resultant collapse of the path in places, and it was closed as a result in March 2017. We have some pictures which will show you the areas where there has been decay, or I did have. They're still there. Okay, thank you. That's because Linda very kindly slimmed down the presentation. The proposal includes working areas identified which would be in place while the works were taking place, and also some site compounds which I will point out to you. Also, as you'll see as we go through the presentation, the majority of works are to reconstruct the path on its existing line with no increase in width or reduction of the access for the disabled. There is just one update on your sheet which I'll draw your attention to, and that is that we have received an amended plan which seeks to incorporate the recommendations of the Dorset County Council National Environment Team, and that is condition 2. It's simply a change to plan number, but just to highlight that for members. So this plan shows the line of the path, the proposed path and the existing path. The existing path, it takes a slightly different line at the top here. There was a slide that showed that. So the original path comes down here. The proposed path will now move slightly over, and it does result in the taking out of a couple of trees, which I can hopefully show you on another plan. So the red line shows the proposed pathway, and the blue line shows where there will be some very moderate changes to the existing line, and generally where that is, it's because it's either been collapsed or it's just easier to reinforce the path with additional in a new location. This shows you where there are 3 trees to come out. There's 2 trees here where I mentioned where the alignment of the path will alter slightly, and then a further one down here. Oh, and actually there is a 4th one on the side here. That's a very minor tree. Again, this is a planting plan. This is the amended planting plan, which has been revised, as I said, to reflect the requirements of one of our consultees. This plan shows the routes for accessing the site. So there will be access from the top. This is to carry out the works, and possibly a compound here. The other route is taken from Warncliffe Road and takes this long route along here to reach the bottom of the pathway here. So between those two is where the works will be carried out. There's also a possible additional storage area in this location here. Got some pictures of the existing pathway. This is the footpath. Top of the footpath is somewhere around here at the moment, and the new route would go down through these trees. So there's some other pictures there, the entrance up here. This is the area of tree work, so this is looking into here where some of these trees will come out, and you can see that these are not good specimens, and they are not particularly substantial trees. This is the existing pathway, an informal path down through the trees. This is the area at the top of the path which will be altered, where the path will move from following this line and around like this, and this picture shows the same here. So this bank here, this is necessary because this bank here is in need of some reinforcement. You can see there has been some erosion. So the path will now clip that corner here with reinforcement support walls in both below and above. This shows you some of the existing railings. We're not clear at the moment which railings will be kept and which will be replaced. That is conditioned. But there is a move to seek to keep reused railings where possible. It shows you a different type of railing as you're going down. So we're just going back down. So here again is where the route will be changed. So the route will be cut off here and here. So I'll just move through these. This shows the area of slippage, some of the damage that was sustained and why the path was closed. This is the third tree to be removed, and the other one sits behind it somewhere in this bank here. In here, I think it possibly that one. And then just more pictures showing you the slope as you go down. The stepped access to the beach, where the pathway comes off in this direction, there are no plans to change that arrangement. And this just gives a little bit more detail on where the retaining walls will sit. So there will be the loss of 4 trees to facilitate the new path, and a considerable amount of excavation and works to provide it. So instead of the supporting that goes in will be done in a different method. I'm not going to go through the technical stuff because I don't think it's really relevant to the application. Members will see that from the report that the application was accompanied by quite a wide range of supporting statements, which reflects the sensitivity of this site. It's got the setting of a grade 1 listed building, so one of the most significant listed buildings. There are TPO trees, and importantly the whole of that cliff face is a SSSI, Site of Special Scientific Interest, for its geological importance. The report in front of you sets out conclusions on each of these key considerations. That is the impact on listed building, trees, landscape, ecology, the impact on the Milford Cliffs SSSI, the character and appearance of the area, and neighbouring amenity. And subject to the conditions which are proposed on the report, the application has been assessed as acceptable and is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all the work you've done on that one. Do you have any questions? Oh yes, sorry, I forgot. If you're in agreement, Councillor Hallam would like to join the table.
Yes.
All in agreement? Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman and members, for inviting me up to the table. I really just wanted to be here as representative of Ward Councillor and also as Chairman of the Task and Finish group to just sort of have the opportunity to sort of say a few words and to reinforce the recommendation that's put before you. As you've already heard, there really isn't any material reason to refuse this application. It really is important to the local community. I think we've all felt that over recent months and understand the importance to our residents. But not only that, it's also vital for the zigzag path to continue with its journey of reopening, and this is sort of the next step forward to that. For visitors to enjoy, it has a positive impact on local community. It has a positive impact on local economy, and also, of course, the health and the well-being of all of our local residents and everybody that will potentially use it going forward. So I would like to you to all consider the recommendation and to support with the recommendation of approval. So thank you very much. And also, sorry, just very quickly, I'd like to also thank the officers for all the work that they've done. This has been very complicated and comprehensive, putting this together, and also for the local residents and the Task and Finish group as well that have all had input with suggestions and feedback. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. So questions, yes. John. Councillor Lofts, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. The little earlier, the area of Highcliffe covered by the whole of the path was shown, and it was indicated that that would be the access to the site, just above where Cliffhanger's Cafe is written. I know the area, but I don't recall having seen that drawing before, or certainly not set out like that. Where it comes to join, I think it's actually Waterford Road at the top. Warncliffe Road comes to an end going towards the east, and the road going to the north is Waterford Road, and somewhere there's a join. But to stop people going down there now is a big 5-bar gate thing. I just want to make the point that while this work is going on, some control needs to be exercised there if the gate is not going to be there. Otherwise, Uncle Tom Cobley and all is going to be going down there during this exercise. Thank you.
As all building projects are properly managed, I'm sure this one will be too. That is not something that the planning system can control, is the shutting of gates. We can have certain controls over the routes of accessibility, which is why we've shown you this, but there would be various health and safety and other regulations which would cover access to site works. So I'm afraid that isn't something that I can give you any advice on how that could be achieved, but it can't be done through the planning system, the closing of that gate.
Okay, Councillor Neal.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 26, where you've got policies and other considerations, there's a whole list of 5.1. I don't see DDA mentioned, and there's a set of steps at the bottom. So is that really in keeping with disabled access?
If I can just find the slide. The steps are there already. They offer an alternative for that bottom part of the slope. So where the steps are here, So, sorry, I can't get the mouse to work properly. You have an option when you get here to finish your trip down to the beach by the steps, or to continue, and this is part of the reconstruction works along down here on a DDA compliant slope. So as I say, the previous works in 2005 were to make the slope DDA compliant. There is nothing being done to reduce that.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you very much. One of my questions was the disabled access, and that's been answered. Thank you very much. But the other one is that I know the cliffs very well. I remember, because it is a very waterlogged cliff, that. I've even been stuck there in quicksands and lost a welly boot when I was very much younger, too many years to remember. But honestly, I am concerned because AECOM did some core drilling and they produced some plugs. Have they been analysed and sorted? Because I do think that if they were taken, we should have the opportunity to have had those analysed to see what the conditions are, so that when we do ahead with this, we don't get any hiccups, we can go straight ahead and get it finished.
My understanding, I mean, again, that technical construction side falls outside the planning, but there is information that supports that there were 3 boreholes. Yeah, there was a geological report produced, and these. Yeah, so there was a geological report done when the path was constructed in 2005, as it is at the moment. And we know that some of the work, I think there's king posts have got to be put in, and those are because they give that necessary support in the landscape in which they are going to be sitting. So there has been considerable construction engineering research done, and we are told, as I say, it's not something for us to consider the method of construction, but I understand that those works have been done. There were boreholes dug to sort of understand the makeup of the land where some of the key retaining walls are required. But as I say, that's not something that we take into account. We look at the implications of those works rather than whether or not they are actually going to do the job. That falls under different regulations.
Thank you very much for that. But my opinion is that after we've taken those plugs and they haven't been analysed, we miss an opportunity. Thank you.
Linda has just found a report that was done, site investigation in 2017. So I think we have evidence that suggests that the scheme that's been put forward to us is deliverable.
Brilliant.
Any further questions? Okay, let's move into debate. We'll pick nearest ward councillor, I think. John, Councillor Lofts.
Thank you, Chairman. God help me, I've been the ward councillor for most of this area for approaching 32 years, so I do have some memories of it. The most important memory is when this was first put forward by this council a year or so ago. Perhaps not a planning reason, but this is roughly £500,000 cheaper than that original proposal. So what we have before us needs to be properly looked at, in my view, by us and indeed the other responsible mechanisms within this council structure, because it will be built before the May elections of next year, or so it says, and we need to keep control of this proposal while it is happening. This planning approval tonight, hopefully, will be part of that mechanism. I would be happy from this committee to propose that we approve this for planning purposes. I can only hope that members of this committee will firstly second and then support me in that, and then all of us as members of this council need to keep an eye on what is happening throughout the winter while these construction works go on. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, thank you, Councillor Moss. Councillor Bath.
Thank you, Chairman. As the Deputy Chairman of the Task and Finish Group for the Zigzag Path, I'm sorry to jump in on Councillor Hall, but I'd like to second the proposal. This is well, not the culmination, because the culmination will be when the path is opened, but it is a very momentous point in time from an awful lot of work from an awful lot of people. Our officers, I've got a file at home which is about this big and very heavy to cart around now, with all of the documentation and all of the work that we have done through the Task and Finish Group in conjunction with the residents who have been very supportive of our work and the officers who have found a way through for this to actually happen at a price that has been approved by our council. So Councillor Loft's concerns, it is a very serious piece of engineering work, but I can tell you for sure the amount of time and effort and professional advice and looking into all of the professional advice by so many different people will actually produce, I'm sure, a very successful result. The tenders are out at the moment, so we're waiting for those to come in from interested parties, and then the work, if this is approved, will commence in the autumn. But I just want to say how much this path, when it was threatened with closure, the uproar from local people was enormous, and luckily we managed to turn that around, and we're drawing towards a point where the much loved path will be reopened again, and I fully support the application and look forward to the future when we can be there to walk down the new path, and it will have many years of use for local residents and our visitors as well. So I'd like to second the proposal for approval.
Thank you, Councillor Bath. Councillor Hall.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Well, again, like Councillor Loft, I'm very concerned about construction and the construction method. It's all very well to say we've had all the surveys, etc., but in the winter and a wet winter, because it is a very soggy wet clear, we could have problems. So I do think that does need to be kept a very close eye on, and although we're just giving planning for it, which is fine, but I do think that construction method and the way it's done, we need to be very much on the ball and watch that very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Neil.
I support what has been proposed and seconded, but I'd also like to add a little footnote to say thank you to all the officers, members and residents of all the work that they've put into this. It has actually been one really big and really good project.
I think we'd all agree with that. Any further comment? Okay, it's been proposed and seconded. For the vote, all those in support, please. And yes, I will vote. That is passed. Next up, Christchurch Borough, Key Road. Who's leading on this one? Linda, thank you. Local residents leave. Yeah.
This is a listed building application that comes before you as the council is the applicant in respect of this proposal, and also is the lessee of the walls, which surprised me. This is the site itself. Sorry, let's get this the right way around. I might be able to work it. So you've got the nope. Priory here, and this is its setting, and we've got a number of sites within the grounds of the Priory where I expect members are aware there's a lot of Harris fencing up. There are areas that say danger, keep out, keep away. This is the Priory car park. There again, the walls here are in a bit of a sad and sorry state. So the proposal before you this evening is to actually carry out repairs to all these walls, which are listed, and also within the setting of a scheduled ancient monument, to carry out excuse me, to carry out the necessary repairs to replace and repair the structures, to put them back to their original state. So you can see on this picture there's a large crack in the pier here. Proposal is to remove the brickwork on the top, rebuild and replace stonework excuse me, and basically make good the fact that the site hasn't been maintained in the past. We have detailed designs of all the specific elements of the 11 areas to be worked on as part of this proposal. I haven't shown them all the details, but we've got photographs of them all. That archway needs rebuilding. You've got trees that are growing out of the walls that need to be removed, so there is vegetation to be removed, which is putting the walls in danger. You've got areas that need underpinning. You've got reconstruction of parts of the walls. There's a lot of detail in exactly how those walls will be rebuilt, the materials to be used, the mortar details, etc. Here again you can see a very large crack running through the building, through the wall. These are all in the public area and the public domain, and there are safety issues. If this work isn't carried out, then there could be implications of falling walls, etc. This is the Priory car park, where again, due to vegetative invasions, you've got a lot of damage being carried out to those walls. We've got the unsightly Harris fencing that is around them at the moment, and this is the opportunity to put right a lot of the problems due to lack of maintenance in this location. And the application is recommended to you for approval.
Thank you very much. Questions? Councillor Bath.
I'm sorry if I've missed it in the report, but all of this work has come about because these walls have not been maintained and managed in the past, and obviously it's going to be a very expensive project to put right what hasn't been maintained in the past. Is there a management plan for the future to ensure that the same situation doesn't recur in the future, for the management of trees that start to grow, or little saplings and things?
There is a detailed schedule of works that's submitted to support these works, and one would hope that that includes ongoing maintenance. Because as you say, it's no point doing the work now and then not carrying out future maintenance, to ensure that the positive work that's come out of this isn't lost in the future.
Could we put a condition to ensure that that happens, please?
If we are the lessee of these walls, I've just been informed by a nice whisper that there will be repairing covenants in respect of how we maintain these walls. This is a listed building application before you in respect of the works per se. It's not a planning application because none of this requires planning permission in its own right, so we can only actually address the issues before you this evening, but we can look at the lease and make sure that we're aware of the implications of letting it slide to this state in the future.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, as heritage champion, I can easily say that I've walked for many years many of these walls and seen much of the decay that's gone on, and I feel that we have lacked in being able to maintain them. And there's been many other members with me on various tours, including people from English Heritage and the like. And it is nice to see that it's actually come forward now at this time, although be a little bit late. I'm really pleased that we're actually looking at this and we're going to do something about them. And it will open up more access to the public because so many entries are boarded up or barricaded because you can't get in to see the real structure. So I'm really pleased, and I'll be really happy to make a proposal that we take this forward.
Okay, well, we're still in questions at the moment. We'll get that bit in a minute. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you for that bit. Any further questions? Okay. Can do that bit again. Just
As it stands.
thanks.
Ward councillors should come in first, forgetting the Heritage Champion Chairman. Ward councillors should come in first, and I'd like to propose that we do go ahead because as the landlords we have failed to maintain these, and we're now putting it right. So really, it should be my proposal that we do go ahead with it. Thank you.
I'm happy to second that proposition.
Fantastic. Anybody have anything else they wish to add? Okay, so we're voting it. It's been proposed and seconded, as set out. Those in favour, again, I'll be voting. Thank you very much. Next item, planning appeals.
Do you want to discuss these, or do you want to take them as read in your hands as how you wish to address these this evening?
Councillor Lofts? Okay, on that note, thank you very much. Now close the meeting. Thank you.